Committee on Audit come to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Webb.
Here.
Commissioner Killeen.
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Clark-Coleman.
She's here. I just saw her coming. She'll be down.
Commissioner Dobb.
Here.
Chair Basham.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
Next item.
B, approval of the November 13th, 2019 meeting minutes.
Move approval.
I'll support that.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next item.
C, unfinished business. There is none.
Next item.
D1, under new business, communication from Wayne County Legislative Auditor General forwarding the Office of the Legislative Auditor General's audit report on the Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services, Community Corrections, Wayne County Residential Alternative to Prison Program.
Okay, I'd like to welcome our Auditor General, Ms. Cora, her staff, and her guests, please.
Marcy Cora, Auditor General, and if we could have the staff and the guests introduce themselves first.
Oh, John Kellett, Supervisory Auditor.
Andrew Ray, Principal Senior Auditor.
Regina Lee, Senior Auditor.
Good morning, Ebony McCann. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm their Audit Manager.
Jennifer Caruso, Division Director, Clinical Services.
Good morning, Ebony McCann, Administrator from Health, Human, and Veteran Services, Adult Community Corrections.
Welcome.
What you have before you today is our performance audit report on the Wayne County Residential Alternative to Prison RAP program out of the Department of Health, Human, and Veteran Services. I'm going to turn it over to the audit team and they'll go through the presentation.
Please proceed.
Okay, starting with slide 2, under purpose and objectives, our office had conducted a performance engagement of the county's Residential Alternative to Prison program, or RAP program. And this is under the Division of Community Corrections within the Department of Health, Human, and Veteran Services. Our objective for this engagement was to assess the administration, oversight, and monitoring of the RAP program with a primary focus on the operations of the two service providers. The scope of our work primarily covered an 18-month period. This is between October of 2016 and March of 2018. And this performance audit was conducted in accordance with Generally Accepted Government Auditing Standards, or GAGAS. To address the objective outlined for this engagement and obtain an understanding of the RAP program activities, we conducted inquiries, analytical procedures. We also assessed program documents and interviewed management officials within the department. A little bit of a background here. The mission of the department and community corrections is to positively impact the quality and also the public safety in Wayne County through coordinated crime reduction efforts. Also effective criminal justice partnerships and evidence-based offender services. During fiscal year 2016, in partnership with the Michigan Department of Corrections, or the MDOC, the county had launched the RAP program. The program is designed to provide the Third Circuit Court with alternative sentencing options for probation violators that are considered prison-bound. And to do this, the program provides cognitive and vocational programming in a secure, highly structured setting at the Detroit Reentry Center, or the DRC. Another objective is to provide the participants with job skills in order to transition to the workplace. The program contracted with two service providers, these being the Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program, or KPEP, and also the Guidance Center. And this was to provide cognitive and vocational programming sessions over our scope period. And based on our review, we identified the RAP program that administered the county had a total of 174 participants. Total compensation paid to the two service providers over the period was a little over $446,000. And according to information provided by Community Corrections, here on this slide, you'll see a table that shows the breakdown between the two service providers, the number of enrollees for each, and then also we put in there the completion rate for each of the programs. In order to perform our testing from each of the service providers, we randomly selected using our ACL program 15 participants, and this represented approximately 9% of the population.
Commissioner Webb has a question.
Thank you, John. I just got a question. I'm just so in the first part of your background here, it says that the county had a total of 174 participants. It cost us $446,000 and change. But the new enrollees down here on your chart showed, I would have thought that would have been a breakup of the 174 participants going to the two different providers. But you have 174 in this KPEP and 171 in the guidance center. So I'm a little confused. How is there only 174 participants, but 174 just at one provider?
There were a total of 174 participants in total. 171 of those only took classes provided by the guidance center.
Oh, I see. And all 174 took them by KPAP.
Correct.
Okay, so that's how I get it. All right, I just needed a point of clarification, and then for some reason they did better in the guidance center program. You had 95% completion rate. Okay.
Yes.
Through the chair, just for, and Ebony, you can, chime in here. The two service providers served the same population.
Right.
So I think classes were in the morning for KPEB and classes were in the afternoon for the guidance center.
So what would, thank you, yeah, so what would you attribute the difference in the completion rate from 86% in one program to 95% in the other program?
Through the chair, the curriculums differ. The curriculum performed by the Guidance Center is a vocational curriculum, so individuals or the offenders were learning a trade, a hospitality curriculum. The KPEP curriculum was a moral recognition therapy component. The completion rate could have been attributed to multiple instances. The offenders may or may not have successfully completed the KPEP curriculum during the time of this scope. So we would not have had the accurate number of successful completions during this engagement period. And there may have been instances where individuals did not complete for instances that were noted by the Michigan Department of Corrections.
Oh, okay. Well, it was the second part of that I was concerned with. If they just had a different time frame and it wouldn't include it in the scope, that's kind of changes the variable. But if they were identical and 95% of them got through one program and only 86% of them, which isn't a bad number, but I'm just saying it's a lesser number, and I just wondered if there was something, glaring as far as what the reason was that they didn't complete that. So we could move on, so we could approve it. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Okay, please proceed.
Okay. As a result of our review, we had determined there were 7 issues and 15 recommendations related to improving the overall control environment within the RAP program. Some of the identified areas include the accuracy of invoicing and payment for contracted services, monitoring program sessions and attendance, and also ensuring participants completing the program receive the proper certificate and recognition. Six of the issues are considered significant deficiencies, and these are deemed of medium risk, and these should be addressed by management in the near term. And one issue we identified as a material weakness, which will require management's immediate attention to implement corrective action for the identified risk. We shared our results with Community Corrections Management, and they agreed with all 7 issues. Now, to go into more detail for each of the issues, I'll turn it over at this time to Andrew Ray and Regina Lee.
Thank you. Our first observation for KPEP was the excess billing and/or payment for Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program sessions, which could be found on page 8 of the report. As part of the RAP program, the county entered into a contract with KPEP for the provision of cognitive behavioral programming to persons sentenced at the Detroit Reentry Center.
Okay, let me jump in there for a second. To the vendor, how do you intend to address the errors found in with the vendor's invoices? How specifically do you plan on addressing that?
As it pertains to Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program, as a component of our fiscal year 2020 funding, the Michigan Department of Corrections made the decision to not extend funding to Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program moving into, or as of October 1, their contract will be terminated effective December 27th. Moving beyond that, we will not oversee a contract with Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program. The Michigan Department of Corrections will come in and provide the MRT curriculum for the RAP offenders.
Good answer. Please proceed.
Okay. The Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program agreed to conduct moral recognition therapy, MRT sessions, and facilitate completion of the Courage to Change, or CTC, interactive journaling program. From the testing procedures conducted, we determined KPEP has invoiced and received payment for MRT and CTC programming sessions that were not supported by program attendance records. Additionally, the invoice sessions included repeated programming sessions. However, we found no language in the contract that allowed for payment of repeated sessions. As a result, we were unable to verify the appropriateness of these charges. The OAG identified a potential $3,000 in overbilling from KPEP over the period of review for the 15 program participants. Not ensuring invoices correspond to the requisite attendance records and are properly documented by program instructors has resulted in overpayment to KPEP in the amount of $3,000 based on our sample. Additional payments may also exist for the balance of the program population. Recommendation 2018-01, classified as significant deficiency. We recommend management within Department of Health, Human and Veterans Services, Community Corrections develop the following procedures. A, ensure each invoiced program session is supported by the required attendance records prior to the authorization of payment to the service provider. And formal language should be developed and included in the agreement that dictates the authority to invoice for repeated MRT and CTC programming sessions. And management agreed with this recommendation.
Ms. Cora?
I just wanted to add, and Andy mentioned it, that the overpayments, the $3,000 may seem like a small amount, but that was only based on the 15 that we sampled. The amount could be higher if you look at the whole population.
Please proceed.
The second observation was session outcomes not documented on attendance records, which could be found on page 9 of the report. The contract between Wayne County and KPEP requires adequate record keeping to ensure that participants are provided with services that meet best practice standards and that client file maintenance meets minimum program standards. Based on our review, program facilitators have not ensured that individual session outcomes are appropriately documented on the required attendance records. Moreover, it appears program managers within community corrections have not exercised sufficient monitoring to identify and report the information absent from the required attendance records.
Commissioner Dodd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have you received any follow-up comments or complaints from judges regarding the regarding the program participants' attendance?
Through the chair, no, we have not.
Okay, thank you.
Specifically,
Commissioner Webb, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just want to piggyback on her question. Do they know? Do you have to report back to the judges and let them know what their attendance is of the participants?
Through the chair, yes, we are. We submit monthly reports. The Michigan Department of Corrections Office of Probationary Services submits monthly reports to the bench. We also attend the judges' bench meetings to discuss the success of the RAP program, any additional changes that are anticipated to take place within the RAP program, the bench is made aware of.
And they never had any concerns or anything about the attendance piece of it?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
And if I'm jump on that for a second, they might not know, the judges, so.
Well, that's what I asked her. She said
But I'm saying that, but they haven't responded back, but that means Doesn't mean they do know or don't know, it just,
You said you reported it to them.
We report to the bench monthly.
I asked.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's exactly what I asked, yeah.
Okay, please proceed.
Specifically, for our sample of 15 participants, we determined numerous moral recognition therapy and courage to change session outcomes, i.e. pass or fail, were not documented on the provided and reviewed attendance records. Additionally, we identified numerous attendance records that included no documentation of the session title attended. For program participants that have this condition, they could be exposed to risk if viewed to be in violation of their respective court order due to the absence of complete, consistent attendance records documenting the required achievement benchmarks. Additionally, participants may not be receiving the full therapeutic complement of programming sessions afforded to them. Recommendation 2018-02, classified as a significant deficiency. We recommend management within the Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services establish measures to ensure each participant attendance record includes a documented outcome or determination for each attended programming session and the respective session title. Management agreed with this recommendation. Our next observation was invoiced program sessions exceeded maximum allowed without authorization, which can be found on page 10 of the report. The contract between Wayne County and KPEP requires review and approval for payment of services based on the authorized fee schedule. The contract also requires that additional program participation in excess of 18 sessions must be authorized in advance by the program manager on an as-needed basis. Based on our review, we determined 11 of the 15 selected participants' MRT and CTC session totals exceeded the 18-session maximum allowed per the contract. Specifically, 167 sessions, which breaks down to 73 MRT and 94 CTC sessions, were attended and invoiced in excess of the 18-session maximum. To determine if the excess sessions were appropriate, the OAG requested documentation of the authorized approvals for the participants whose program sessions exceeded the 18-session maximum. Management explained the requisite authorized approvals were not available as they had not been completed. As a result of the noted condition, the county was invoiced and made payments to the contractor for unauthorized program sessions that totaled $4,175. According to the community corrections officials, the contract language may need to be amended to increase the session requirements for both MRT and CTC.
Commissioner Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two quick questions as it relates to, well, same question, but for two different parts of this. So one of them, so this one is just a sample, which it, of the 15 that you were looking at, right?
Correct.
And you came up with the 4175. And the other one was, what, 3,000? Then it was just a sample of 15. Do you know what the totals would be on the total population?
The total population for how many additional sessions that the participants actually received,
Yeah.
I can obtain that information.
I mean, that would just be interesting to know. If we're only looking at a sample of 15 people and it cost us this much, yeah, I would think it'd be good for us to know. I mean, you made the decision already to quit doing business with one of them, one of the service providers.
The Michigan Department of Corrections made that decision.
Oh, did they? Okay.
But may I add something as it pertains to the curriculum?
Yeah.
When the program was implemented in 2016, the Michigan Department of Corrections and the Office of Community Corrections combined forces to identify a curriculum that would fit the needs of the probationers inside of the DRC.
Mm-hmm.
When they researched particular aspects of the program, they did not take into consideration the barriers that the probationers may have as they attempt to get through the actual programming. We are dealing with individuals that have mental illness, educational impairments, and so their comprehension levels in some instances are low as well. So for them to get through this curriculum requires them to redo sessions. We also noted as a result of this engagement that the actual MRT curriculum is not a minimum of 18 sessions. I think we identified or determined that it takes at least 26 sessions to even touch the...
18 that are required or something?
No, the actual curriculum requires 26 sessions. So the contract did not actually support the actual MRT curriculum. We we found or discovered that as a result of this engagement as well. The Office of Community Corrections, once the Auditor General's office brought these discrepancies to our attention, we did implement a procedure in which the facilitator of the MRT curriculum over at the DRC would submit in writing the request and the number of additional sessions for each probationer, and that request would require the approval of the program manager. So we did note prior to the notice that we received from the Michigan Department of Corrections indicating their decision to move forward without KPEP, we were preparing to formalize and enter into their contract language that supports the actual number of sessions needed. So we did have a plan to rectify or resolve this issue.
Okay, very good. Well, you know, it's the beauty of the audit process is everybody operates better once they've gone through one, so that's a good thing. Okay.
Commissioner Kleen, to that point.
Thank you. So MDOC's going to do the service now. You alluded to it, but is the contract with MDOC going to say 26 sessions? You didn't explicitly say that.
The Wayne County will not enter into an agreement with the Michigan Department of Corrections. The Michigan Department of Corrections will internally provide staff to provide the MRT curriculum for the RAP participants. So Wayne County
You don't have to contract with them
That is
for
correct.
them to come here?
That's correct.
And are they going to have the 26?
I have not been made aware of the curriculum that the Michigan Department of
could be another
Corrections.
one.
It could be. They
Okay.
may not
All right.
use this current curriculum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, please proceed.
Recommendation 2018-03, classified as a significant deficiency. We recommend management within the Department of Health, Human and Veterans Services, Community Corrections, A, reevaluate their existing invoice review procedures to include a reconciliation of program attendance records to vendor invoices in order to validate the accuracy of billings. B, establish measures to ensure appropriate authorization is obtained and documented to support adherence to the contract agreement. And C, consider reviewing the contract agreement between KPEP and Wayne County to determine the accuracy and applicability of the current language and determine if revision is necessary on future contracts. Management agreed with this recommendation. At this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Regina Lee for presentation of recommendations 4 through 6.
Thank you, Mr. Rhea. Now we're going to address the Guidance Center. Lack of adequate instructor experience credentials can be found on page 12 of the report. The county contracted an agreement with the Guidance Centers to provide the START, which is the skill task, result training, and the Serve Safe certification required, and they required that the program facilitators to possess proper experience, credentials in order to conduct programming sessions and administer examinations. Based on our assessment, Community Corrections Management did not establish sufficient procedures to ensure program facilitators had obtained the required certifications, management, or teaching experience prior to and subsequent to executing the contract. Also, the START Serve Safe training instructors did not possess the appropriate hospitality management teaching experience and or the Serve Safe training certifications required to serve as program instructors. As a result, the RAP program contractor, the Guidance Center, was in violation of their respective contract agreement by allowing their instructors to conduct programming sessions without proper experience or certification. RAP program participants may not have received adequate instructions due to the lack of appropriate certifications and or teaching experience from the program instructors. Our recommendation 2018-04, significant deficiency. We recommend the Department of Health, Human and Veterans Services, Community Corrections Management, A, establish procedures to ensure RAP program instructors have the appropriate certifications and management teaching experience prior to executing the contractual agreement with the program service providers. B, Ensure a periodic review is conducted over the contract program for a contract period for program facilitators to verify credentials are maintained and are current. Management agreed with the recommendation.
Commissioner Webb?
Have you addressed the concern raised by the auditors regarding the program instructors?
Through the chair, yes, we have. Again, the Guidance Center was contracted in 2016. As a result of conversations that transpired between the Michigan Department of Corrections and Office of Community Corrections, the qualifications were not thoroughly expressed to the Guidance Center. And as a result, when they selected individuals to perform this particular or these particular roles, they did not have the necessary credentials. I arrived in April of 2017 after an internal audit of the Guidance Center. A corrective action plan was submitted by myself for issues or areas of concerns that I noted. Several corrective action plans were submitted. The Guidance Center underwent a significant amount of transition as it pertains to their staff, so we would receive a response to a corrective action plan with plans to move forward and resolve those issues, and then a new executive director, a new clinical director would come in and we'd have to start over. I made my concerns known to the Michigan Department of Corrections. I believe it was in 2018, where the Michigan Department of Corrections instructed the Office of Community Corrections to place a hold on the invoices that were being processed by the Guidance Center in an attempt for them to identify or determine whether or not we needed to continue on with the agreement with the Guidance Center. In our fiscal year 18's contractual conditions, MDOC included conditions that discussed that we needed to identify or procure a new vendor to take over the Guidance Center's contract. The contract with the Guidance Center was terminated effective this year. We have procured the Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation to provide the vocational programming for the RAP participants. And so this has been an ongoing issue that was originally noted in 2017. We were finally allowed to get out of the contract with the Guidance Center. We mutually agreed to dissolve the contract based on the expectations that our department has, as well as the expectations that the state has. And so moving forward, the Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation will now be responsible for providing the vocational curriculum to the RAP participants.
I appreciate the way you're on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to that point, and then Commissioner Dobb. So Detroit Employment Solutions, they had a lot of issues also. So they're taking over the Guidance Center's contract, and have they cleaned up their own house?
I was not aware of any issues that the Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation has had. This is our first contract and only contract that Community Corrections has with the Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation. We are entering into a 1-year agreement with Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation. They actually are starting their programming today. Effective from today, the Office of Community Corrections will reissue an RFP to identify a long-term solution to the vocational curriculum. We identified that the actual RFP was not specific in what it was that we were looking for as it pertains to curriculums. So moving forward, the curriculums will be clearly stated in the RFP with hopes that we will essentially have more than one respondent. DESC was the only respondent that responded to the vocational vocational RFP that was posted by Community Corrections.
Thank you. And Commissioner Dobb.
Thank you. So who exactly is responsible for hiring the program instructors? And I guess I'm more concerned about going forward with Detroit Employment Solutions. Will they be hiring those people? They'll be putting out the job posting and doing the interviews and checking the qualifications, or is that the county's responsibility?
The vendor is responsible for the hiring of the staff that will be responsible for providing the services. However, as I've indicated, as a result as a result of this audit, we have identified and will move forward with adopting the recommendations that were made by the Auditor General to ensure that we have oversight of the program as well as the staff that are providing the services to the RAP participants.
Okay, thank you.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Excess billing payment for the Guidance Center Inc. program sessions can be found on page 14 of the report. The county entered into a contract with the Guidance Center to provide serve-safe training certified instructors and proctors to implement the START training sessions. Participants were to complete 150 hours of training. To assess compliance, we sampled 15 program participants' program attendance records for completion in the following areas: attendance dates, class recorded time, participant and facilitator signatures. Based on our review, we determined the Guidance Center invoiced and received overpayment for the START program serve-safe training sessions that were not supported by the required program attendance records. We also found the 15 participants did not always complete the 150 hours of training. Specifically, we determined the noted conditions resulted in overpayments of approximately $12,361. Because of the noted conditions, risk exposure exists if the overpayment of program expenses could be deemed unallowable cost and which may impact future program awards. In addition, by not ensuring participants are completing the minimum hours for the serve-safe training and certifications, the participants' lack of sufficient training hours could impact their future employment status. Recommendation 2018-05, which is a significant deficiency. We recommend that management within the Department of Health, Human, and Veteran Services, Community Corrections, A, develop procedures to ensure each invoice program session for the START and serve-safe training programs are compared to the required attendance records prior to authorization of payments to the service provider. B, ensure monitoring of participants' program hours to ensure the prerequisite number of training hours is achieved prior to the completion of the serve-safe training program. And management agreed with the recommendations.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ebony, the participants who did not fulfill their obligation did you find that many of them dropped out, or were they just not attending on a regular basis?
Through the chair, what we found during this audit was, so when the program was implemented in 2016, there was a thought that it would take originally 120 days for an offender or a probationer to complete the actual program. Considerations were not taken into place as it pertained to call-outs from other prison-based programs, other prison appointments, court proceedings. And so at one point, the Michigan Department of Corrections made the suggestion to the bench to extend the actual term of the program to 180 days. There was not a clear number of hours that it would require to complete both the Guidance Center as well as KPEP, and so you had individuals who completed programming prior to the 180 days because there were individuals who were capable of providing or completing the program without being held in the prison as long. And then there were instances, or there may have been instances, where individuals were charged on outside offenses and removed completely from the program. That would require a different viewpoint from my position to determine whether or not or what variables prompted them to not complete the programming in that time frame.
So I think that it's important that that we note their rationale, the reasons that they did not complete that program. It might have been something not within their control that they didn't complete it. And that's why I ask, if a person drops out of a program, then we should know, it should be reported why they dropped out. But for those individuals who might have missed several sessions, then we should also know that. I think it's important
Yes.
that there be a rationale or reason for it, not just to say that they didn't complete all the hours. There could be extenuating circumstances.
That's correct.
Why they did not complete the program.
There is a running spreadsheet that is maintained by the Michigan Department of Corrections that notes the outcome of the offenders. Off the top of my head, I do know that 40 individuals have been unsuccessfully terminated from the program as a result of their mental health impairments.
The kind of stuff I'm talking about.
To date, 14 individuals have been terminated from the program as it pertains to behavioral or disciplinary actions. And so those individuals were sent back to the Michigan Department of Corrections.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So then is it whose responsibility is it to notify the proper people that this happened so that they're not continuing to be charged for that individual's attendance?
The vendors bill community corrections for the services that are rendered. I think that, again, included in the scope that was included in the pricing appendix, the guidance center's contract stipulated that they would receive weekly payments for services rendered. It was not broken down into a daily rate. So, for instance, if an offender or a probationer attended class on Monday, Tuesday, was called out on Wednesday, was sick on Thursday, and then attended class on Friday, the guidance center, as it pertains to their contract, was still entitled to a weekly rate. That was a discussion that my administration and I sat and had, and we were we were planning to implement changes to modify or resolve this language in the contract to enter a daily rate so that we would be able to charge per day instead of this weekly rate that was included in the original contract from 2016.
I think that that's a defect in the contract itself.
Yes.
To that point, Will?
Through the chair, just, Ebony, I believe what should be noted is that the 15 individuals that we looked at, while they didn't complete all of their hours, and they were deemed to have completed the program, and that's what really drew the exception to our attention.
So then the contractor was negligent in not noting, but still giving them credit. Okay. All right.
Okay. Please proceed.
Incomplete attendance records, the Guidance Center, Inc. can be found on page 15 of the report. We already know that the Guidance Center was contracted for the START and the Serve Safe Food Handlers Training Program. In order to assess the accuracy of the billing submitted by the Guidance Center for classes attended by participants, we compared the participants' attendance records maintained by the class instructors to the billing submitted by the Guidance Center. We also reviewed site visit reports conducted by HHVS program managers. Based on our review of the 15 program participants' weekly attendance records, we identified the Guidance Center instructors and the CC program manager failed to ensure the attendance reports were accurate and completed as required by the contract. We also found that the program manager in June of 2017 informed the contractor to have an additional staff person overlook the data prior to the information being entered into the case management system to mitigate the errors. Inaccurate and incomplete attendance sheets for participants completing the START Serve Safe training certification increases the likelihood of billing errors and brings into question the participants' actual attendance of program sessions. Recommendation 2018-06, significant deficiency. We recommend management with the Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services ensure the following. A, instructors maintain attendance records as outlined by the contract to support participants' completion of the START and the Serve Safe training program. And B, program managers ensure that all records are properly documented in order to verify that submitted billings are accurate. Management agreed with the recommendations. At this time, I will turn the final sessions over to Mr. Andrew Rhea.
Our last observation was the RAP program participants were not receiving nationally recognized Serve Safe training certification, which can be found on page 17 of the report. The National Restaurant Association issues the nationally recognized Serve Safe training certification upon successful completion of the requisite examination and recognizes the Serve Safe food handler certificates for a 3-year period. They also provide the Serve Safe training and educational material for RAP program participants seeking the food handler certification. We requested from program management copies of the Serve Safe training certificates issued for the 15 participants. We received certificates for 13 of the 15 participants. We were informed the remaining 2 certificates were unavailable. Based on our review, we found all 13 participants received manually issued certificates from the contractor. The certificates were signed and dated by an employee of the contractor who was certified, who was a certified Serve Safe food handling training instructor / proctor. A proctor is the individual registered by the National Restaurant Association who can order booklets and administer the examinations. We found the exams were scored by the proctor who subsequently issued the manual certificates. We found no evidence that the answer sheets and exams were submitted to the National Restaurant Association to be graded in order to obtain the nationally recognized certificate. The provided certificates did not contain a certification number or expiration date, information that is indicative of the nationally recognized certificate. We searched the Serve Safe training, the Serve Safe training website database and could not validate the 15 participants' certifications. By not ensuring the contractor follows the requisite Serve Safe training certification process, the contractor is not in compliance with the National Restaurant Association's process for participants to receive the nationally recognized Serve Safe food handler training certification. This could impact the participants' future employment opportunities.
So to dumb this down for me, so the purpose of this program is to get ex-felons a job and a certification that's recognized nationally, but by somebody that knows the system not submitting the proper paperwork, all the certificates that the participants got were not recognized nationally. Is that correct?
As it pertains to the Serve Safe certificates, the individuals, the 15 individuals that were sampled, it does not appear that their certifications were nationally recognized.
So are you going to go back and fix this?
So that was a question that when we received this report, the administration and I sat down and discussed. We're still working through how to resolve and what that looks like. It will require collaboration with the Michigan Department of Corrections. A lot of these individuals, well, most of these individuals have been successfully discharged from their term of probation. And so that will require collaboration to identify where the individuals reside and where or how we can submit those tests that they were actually issued to the National Safe Serve organization so that they can be tested properly, and the individuals then receive the actual certificates that they earned as a result of completing programming inside DRC.
Yeah, we really should, if I may, make sure, because you're dealing with people that have, for one reason or another, felt society is not working for them. They get re-engaged. They spend the time and effort to get national certification, think they complete the test, think they can go get a job other places, and some, will probably do well on their own, but others, it just pushes them back down into, well, no matter what you do, it's not going to work. So we really should, and if there's anything that we can do, if we have to talk on the state or a federal level, then please let us know, but we really should complete that.
I agree. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. She said she agrees on record. Thank you. Ms. Coleman.
Do we have any, Ebony, do we have any numbers about how many people might have been affected? 15. No, we know.
According to the
sample.
scope, the sample was 15 participants. We will have to, I do have the number of successful completions or participants that have been enrolled into the RAP program, and so I can provide that data.
So is there a way that you can go back and identify these individuals, even though many of them probably have good jobs now, and are being, or that are actively employed?
We have a spreadsheet of individuals, and it indicates where they are. The Michigan Department of Corrections, again, maintains the spreadsheet, and it indicates where these individuals are employed. As a result of the termination of the contract with the Guidance Center, the Office of Community Corrections is in possession of all of the client files for the participants that entered and went through that program. And so we have access to those tests that were scored. It just is now a matter of implementing a plan or collaborating with MDOC to determine how the best course of action to get the graded certificates.
And to make them whole. I mean,
correct.
Something should be able to be done to, would they have to go through additional training or?
No, it's my understanding. I believe and I'm confident that the participants successfully completed all chapters and components that they were expected in order to obtain the certificate. The breakdown in communication was actually submitting that graded Scantron or that Scantron to the National Safe Serve or Serve Safe organization so that they can appropriately grade those Scantrons.
Then it's not as serious as I thought, because it's simply a matter of paperwork, right?
It require us to look into further to determine whether or not it can be a simple fix as paperwork, or if it requires additional review by our department.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, through the chair, Ebony. So what I heard you say is that you may have a database of last known addresses or even current addresses of these individuals.
The Michigan Department of Corrections maintains that database.
The certificate is only good for 3 years, so maybe, and I'm not telling you, but maybe sending a letter out, to that last known address saying, your certificate expires, especially for those who completed it in 16 and 17. You will need to retake the exam with the National Restaurant Association. But that was just a comment.
thank you. Okay,
That's a good suggestion. It is.
okay, please proceed.
Recommendation number 2018-07, classified as the material weakness. We recommend the Department of Health, Human and Veterans Services, Community Corrections Management, A, develop and implement policy and procedures to ensure the contractor is required to send participants' exams to the National Restaurant Association for approval and issuance of the nationally recognized certificate. And B, ensure the contractor informs the RAP program participants that the Serve Safe training certification is only valid for a 3-year period and the exam must be retaken. Management agrees with this recommendation.
Okay.
In conclusion, our review identified several areas for enhancing internal controls over the accuracy of invoicing and payment for contracted services. In addition, corrective measures and procedures will need to be implemented to ensure documentation is adequately reviewed and provided to support the payment for program services. We strongly encourage management of the Department of Health, Human and Veterans Services, Community Corrections ensure the recommended internal controls identified in this report are considered in order to mitigate and manage the risk related to the RAP program operations. A corrective action plan will be requested approximately 30 days after this report is formally received and filed by the Wayne County Commission. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, anything further? Can I get a motion to receive and file? Oh, Commissioner Kling.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. A few things here. Where does the funding come from for this?
The funding comes from the Michigan Department of Corrections Office of Community Corrections.
Any general fund, general purpose dollars from Wayne County go into this?
The Office of Community Corrections for Wayne County is 100% grant funded.
Does the state audit this program then, since it's their money?
The state conducted an audit in 2017, and we've had subsequent program reviews. We have not been, since my time in this office, we have not had a state audit performed.
Okay. The Auditor General see that 2017 audit?
The site visit report from Lindsay Lamontagne, it was titled as site visit report, but she audited the RAP program.
Because we've got a lot of, some hands in this pot. Because when I look at this, 6 of the 7 areas that were pointed out in the audit fall into the mortal sin category, significant deficiencies in audit speak. So I guess, to me, on the surface, it says, well, we might be in peril in our funding with the state of Michigan. Okay, so any of the overpayments and stuff are not on the county's dime. We're spending the state money when we do the overpayments, as pointed out in the audit, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, some other basics. The Detroit Reentry Center, is that over there on Ryan Road?
Yes,
And so that's where everybody is housed,
that is
And the
all RAP participants, yes,
and the services go there.
correct.
Then I get back into the hiring. Apparently, we hired the Kalamazoo and the Guidance Center, and now the state's saying, no, we're going to put somebody else in there besides Kalamazoo. Who does the hiring of these? You know, sometimes the state does it, voices it upon us. Sometimes we do.
The contracts between Kalamazoo and the Guidance Center were procured through our normal or typical Wayne County procurement
Right, we did
process.
that.
Yes.
But now the state's stepping in and say, we're going to do the hiring.
The state implemented, contractual conditions that addressed or identified the deficiencies with the Guidance Center, and they indicated or suggested that we identify a new vendor to provide that service. And as it pertains to Kalamazoo Probation Enhancement Program, they just did not fund that program for this current fiscal year, and as a result of us not having funding to support that program, we had to terminate their contract as a result of not having the funds.
So the state put the kibosh on KZU and said, we're going to run this ourselves.
That's correct.
Okay. And they basically fired the Guidance Center and said to us, you go hire whoever the contractor is going to be.
Well, the conversations with the Guidance Center ensued between the county and the Guidance Center. The Guidance Center essentially indicated that based on the requirements of the RAP program, that they were no longer capable of providing us with the services that we needed. And so we mutually agreed to terminate that contract.
It wasn't the state that pulled the plug on
That's
it.
correct.
Okay, so we're going to go out and hire somebody to replace the Guidance Center then.
We procured Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation.
We got that, okay. On the amounts of overpayments were identified here, since it was a 9% sample, I think I'm on good footing to say multiply all those numbers by 10 to see what, any auditors have any issues with that? So when there's 12,000 excess payment to the Guidance Center, I'm thinking 123,000. If we extrapolate, one of the numbers I wrote down was the 3,000 in billing excess to KZU, but I see now that's involved in that 18 to 26 hour controversy, and so under the new system that MDOC's going to do, I guess, maybe that 3,000 in the end really isn't legit. That's not necessarily an overspend just because. But regardless of that, that all adds up to about 180,000 to me in overpayments when you look at all of the. Now I thought if that was county money, hey, that's plenty of money to hire another person and have somebody else in there keeping track of everything. In our discussions with the state and along with something like this, can we say to the state with our Do they re-up us annually for this grant? How long does this grant last?
It's an annual grant, and we submit an annual application for
Yeah.
funds.
Can we, as a basis of this audit, put into the grant, we need you to hire one more person to stay on top of the problems that the audit raised?
As it pertains to actually hiring additional staff to provide services, MDOC has been strong in their position that we currently have enough staff. What it will require is some restructuring of the current staff that we have and some expectations and implementations, the recommendations from the Auditor General's office to ensure that we are capturing the
Ask you
accurate
directly,
information.
You're running this. Do you have enough staff? I don't care what the state says.
I
When you
believe,
look at these audits and,
yes.
okay. All right, so that's legit. Is the Community Corrections Advisory Board notified of this audit?
I believe, I'm not sure if I sent Commissioner Clark Coleman the actual report, but since it has been reviewed, I can send the final report to the members of the CCAB. This Auditor
Because there
General.
was actually also a question for the auditor. Do you forward it to?
No, we didn't have it as
'Cause
part
I
of
think that
distribution,
board-
but we could make sure that the final report was sent. at least.
Okay, because I think that board also should be apprised of, and then does this audit, do we, I'll ask the Auditor General, does this audit then, do we submit it to MDOC as well? How do they know about this?
We'll make sure they're on the final distribution also.
Well, again, we have a few moving parts here, and apparently there was a audit, don't take it wrong, disguised as a performance review or something.
A site visit.
A site visit, yeah, an audit that was disguised as a site visit just a couple of years ago that our auditors didn't see, right? And
No, they were, they were
Oh, you
made aware.
did get it,
Yes.
okay. I just want to
Yes.
make sure all the parties here
Yes.
are seeing all these different reports.
And what we'll do is we'll get with Ebony and make sure that we have a complete distribution of everybody that needs to be involved from the
Okay.
state to the Community Corrections Advisory Board.
Does the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, the old mental health authority, involved in this program at all? How do we, with the mental health funding, how is that? If there is mental health issues, are people pulled out of this program then?
That is correct.
So the funding that the mental health people send over takes over somewhere else?
If it is the recommendation of the Michigan Department of Corrections probation officer that that particular offender requires additional mental health services, they make the recommendation.
decision on, okay. Who does the evaluation of them then?
I'm sorry?
Who does the evaluation that is the basis for should they be moved?
It depends on the recommendation of the Michigan Department of Corrections. The CFA, which is the Correctional Facilities Administration, has staff in-house that provides those assessments to determine whether or not those offenders are capable of completing programming in the actual prison.
Your alphabet soup in me here. Who the heck is that?
The
Is
Correctional Facilities of America is now has the oversight
Are those folks that are over
over.
at the Detroit
That's
Reentry
correct.
Center? And
Yes.
they are hired by who?
They are hired by the Michigan Department of Corrections.
And they do the evaluation?
That is correct.
Wonder why the mental health authority's not doing it. So how many of these people get jobs?
That information I can submit to you at a later date. We do have the actual spreadsheet that's maintained by MDOC, and I can provide the actual number of individuals that are
Run the
employed.
program. Are we getting half the people jobs coming out of this, a quarter, 86%? What are we getting? I'd like to see the data.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious, because this goes to the efficacy, and is there some sort of standard in the, is it a contract with MDOC then, or the grant agreement?
The grant agreement. So the grant does not stipulate the actual number of individuals that they would like for us to have successfully obtain employment. I do know that
So we could have nobody getting jobs out of this, and that wouldn't necessarily imperil the funding for this from the state?
That's correct.
Because there's no criteria. Crazy. Well, you know, but I think we're all becoming familiar with this as we sit here and go through all of these things. There's a lot of slop between the state overseeing stuff and funding us in all sorts of areas, right? And what we have to report back. I get the sense there's a lot of box checking going on up at the state level because they're similarly imperiled with the number of employees. So there's a lot of running room here, it seems, with these dollars. But this is serious business, getting people, returned citizens and getting them to work. I think this is what we should be doing in the American criminal justice system, not just locking up, unlocking it whenever the sentence up, get the hell out of here, good luck, right? We want to have people go back out with some sort of rehabilitation and more skills than they came in with. So I'd be very curious as to how many folks actually wind up with jobs out of this, and I'm a little disturbed the state of Michigan doesn't seem to care.
Yeah, that's the part that I said was.
Those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to receive and file?
Move to receive and file.
Is there support?
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item, Ms. Clerk.
Item 2, requesting commission approval of modification 2 to a professional services contract with Plant & Moran PLLC
So much
to
fun.
perform independent external audit services for the fiscal years of September 2020 and 2021.
I'd move to approve.
Support.
Ms. Cora.
Just under discussion, what you have, and we have Dave Hellisek, the partner from Plant Moran here, if anybody has any additional questions for him. But what you have before you is 2 parts of the contract. The first part is a modification to add $250,000 for this fiscal year's audit and the next 2 years. And that's only on an as-needs basis, which is a result of the lack of staffing within the department, within management and budget over the last 2 years to help ensure that the counties meet their state required deadline of March 31st. Plant Moran's had to extend additional services because of incomplete bank reconciliation, assistance with capital assets. There's just a number of things that Plant Moran's done over the last 2 years that actually we're not compensated for. But going forward, we believe that if the services are needed, they need to be compensated for it. And they would have the independent part of Plant Moran would be doing these services. Then the other part of the contract is to extend the 2-year renewal for the next 2 years to be fiscal year 20 and 21, which is already part of the contract that our office is allowed to extend it. So we wanted to extend the 2 years.
And Commissioner Webb made a motion to approve,
Yes.
Supported it.
and Commissioner Coleman supported it,
Yes.
and there's no discussion?
I just have one question.
There is discussion. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, or more or less a comment. And I totally agree with what you just said, Marcy, about if they're going to provide the services, they should be paid. But in my research on the operational overview that I do every year, they've had 100% turnover in M&B. They're on their, I think they went through 3 CFOs in 4 years. I don't think they even have one right now, right? They're still in an interim with Matthew Bay. And he's in and out. He's had some serious health issues. So, yeah, so, I mean, I could totally see why we need them there. And I'm thankful for the fact that they're available to them as we move forward on both sides of the equation with the administration. So I just want to put that comment on the record. So I'm fully supportive of this contract. Thank you.
I just like to add to, I appreciate the support of this contract because I think we could have come back in a couple months and did the extension for the 2 years, but since we were doing the modification for the 250,
Yeah.
might as well just do everything at one time and just seamlessly
I agree.
continue.
Yeah.
There's a motion, there's support. Any further discussion? Commissioner Kling.
You say the 250 was an up to amount?
Up to, yes, just on an as-need basis authorized by our office, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It's pretty controversial. Ayes have it. Next item.
E, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
There are none.
F, public comments.
Is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment? Joe? Okay. Anybody from the public like to comment? Next item. Madam Clerk.
Adjournment.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.
It's a good meeting. You guys do such a great job. We really, that's the best thing.
Playing defense there.
With the refinancing.
Because they haven't been able to keep up with the terms of the contract.
Bonds to build the first jail.
Now, I know
We're paying about
the
$13
department was
million a year
hiring, I think it was
back
2
on
additional
absolutely
people to
because
kind
they
of
moved the
monitor
jail.
contracts.
They left $153 million on the ground and then so taxpayers are
exactly.
paying that $13 million a year. back then when they did that was like in 2010, 2011, so the interest rates
why,
were ungodly. I
we
think
could
we're
go
somewhere between like around 8 to 10%.
as a county to the state, and say, hey,
Because our
our
credit
internal audit
was
turned
in a
up
recession. So you go to refinance it, that was good. Within a couple of years, you can refinance, call the bonds
So,
and refinance.
we want you to
Yeah,
fund one more person, we'll save
So
the
by the time
state.
you go through the contract process from when we were eligible to do it.
Let's say it's
till they
a,
procure an outside
$60,000
contractor
a year
to come
job,
in and do it for
benefits
us.
and all that, it's $110,000. And by hiring that person, we're gonna save you almost $300,000.
Which could be used to provide more service.
That we what?
We could use that money to provide
You
more
know,
services.
Well, it's not our money, it's the state's money,
Right, so basically,
right?
so you raise a great point.
And
So,
for the state to say we're not
same thing that's
interested,
going on with engineering, same thing that's going on with jail health, same thing that's going on with forestry,
See,
it's
it's hard to
completely
really
everything's
know
contract.
what we're
Even
being
roads, is,
when
we have
there's
a
this
$500
other
million back
conversation
into the state
going
of
on.
roads money,
And
because we
other
didn't have the people
contracts.
to fill the potholes.
Because that was my first
So we're
question,
almost
as I ran
700
through this, is
unfilled
this
vacancies.
GFGP funded?
Yeah, so you're right, so I mean, it's really,
Right,
we used
because
to
it
be
wasn't
employers,
obvious.
now we're
Right.
contractors.
That this is a state-funded grant program, here's the
It's
terms
not
and
gonna change, it's gonna
conditions,
keep getting worse.
and then who's
Comparable.
making the calls?
No, you're
Seems
absolutely
To
like-
have the issue, the
Yeah.
so you could lose a grant funding if you're not monitoring the program.
Well, that's right. And I don't know how
So you're
serious
thinking
that
like a
is.
Democrat, so.
Because
So
also
board
the
on
state
other
allows
hand
things to
says
go
just
on that they
annihilate the
shouldn't allow to
workforce,
go
allow
on
quit, then we can
as a part of
contract
the
it out
box
to all
check, and we've seen that before.
Yeah, that's a deep word.
Right.
This is a Democrat. I know,
The
you're
state
right
is
on, no,
not
you're right on.
exactly assiduous
Oh,
in their own policing of their own grant
will you
agreements
wait?
and their own.
I'll talk to you again in 10 years. And you'll, maybe you'll then, by
Yeah, I
then you'll
question
see
what they're gonna
why I'm the crazy woman that I am.
It's kind of,
Yeah,
it is kind of.
Oh, for us? Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
easily.